Hallard. I'm Chief Exec of the GSA, and I'm hoping to be joined by our Associate Director of Professional Development, Chris Halward, shortly. So what we've got is a quick 45-minute run through. Next slide, please, Abby. Just to take you through a brief introduction to the GSA and what our approach to professional development is, and then specific details on the programme that we're running and launching right now. So, so next slide, please, Abby. So those of you that aren't familiar with the Global Sourcing Association, we are the industry association and professional body for sourcing. We've been around for 33 years now, and we were previously known as the National Outsourcing Association up until 2016. So we obviously provide all the services you'd expect from a membership association, but we're really focused on promoting best practice in outsourcing, focused on growing the reach and positive reputation of the industry, and also professionalising the industry. And this is an overview of the range of services the GSA provides. So I won't go into great detail on all of those. Right, next slide, please, Abby. Okay, so last week the GSA launched its manifesto, which was in response to COVID-19. We've called it Rethinking Sourcing, Restarting UK. So we really believe that the strategic sourcing industry and the work of technology services and business services was absolutely phenomenal in response to COVID-19. I really do think that the industry helped many organisations not just keep the lights on, but keep the wheels turning as we went into lockdown. And we all at the GSA firmly believe that the sourcing space and business services and technology services is going to be absolutely front and centre of companies restarting strategies. So next slide, please, Abby. So within that, we are seeing the importance of strategic sourcing continue to escalate. So prior to COVID, our research showed that the best performing companies have a strategic sourcing function. And we firmly believe that those companies that have managed to survive COVID, to get through COVID the best, are also those companies that have actually taken a very strategic sourcing approach to their business. So when we talk about strategic sourcing, we talk about a team that is focused on transcending the business. So strategic sourcing for us transcends business, operations, finance, technology and procurement, and works in a really holistic way to really focus on how they bring value to the business, predominantly through partnering with external service providers or global business services. So we believe strategic sourcing is going to be front and centre in helping companies get through COVID-19 as they look to drive innovations and transformations much more quickly than they've ever needed to before. And they look at different contracting models, different operating models, and working with partners in a different sourcing ecosystem in a completely different way to ever before. So the GSA's manifesto has the transition to a strategic sourcing function right at the centre of its programme of work. But we have this array of 8 different work streams that we're working with that we also think are going to be, central in helping companies in their restart strategies. So that's everything from technology-enabled business service delivery, CX, which William, you're leading, looking at the sourcing ecosystem and bringing lots of smaller players into the fold, moving towards enterprise-wide automation and doing all of this in a very sustainable way. So this is all the work that strategic sourcing professionals need to be really mindful of. So we have these work streams, and I'm doing a big shout out to say have a look at our manifesto on the website, and please do sign up and get involved in any of the work streams to start driving a programme of change for the industry. Okay, thank you. Next slide, please, Debbie. Okay, so one of the work streams is talent, and we're really focused on attracting more talent into the industry as well as upskilling talent. So we've got a talent work stream that Joe Williams from Aviva is leading for us. There, if you're interested in being an ambassador for the industry to attract more people to work into it, getting involved in our mentoring programs, having your say on wellness or inclusion and diversity, then we've got a talent work stream that is very active but looking for more participants. And obviously within that, we've got this whole program of GSA's professional development going online. So, so next. Okay, so that then brings us on to GSA's qualifications. So the GSA has been providing qualifications for sourcing for about 15 years now, and we have qualified and worked with over 200 organisations. So our qualifications are equally suitable for, or equally promoted to, used by the buyers of sourcing and also the service providers. And we have qualified individuals that are just starting in their careers, but equally our qualifications are relevant to really seasoned practitioners and strategic leaders in this industry. So, over 15 years of providing qualifications, but Chris will give you some more information on that shortly. So the main thing about our programme is, next slide please, Abby, is that our entire portfolio of qualifications is centred around the Global Strategic Sourcing Standard. So this is a body of best practice that we have developed with the industry for the last sort of 15 years. So it's 160 pages of best practice for the end-to-end life cycle of how organisations should approach strategic sourcing. It's currently, as a result of COVID-19, freely available on the GSA's website. So sign up to the GSA's website and you'll be able to have access to this 160 pages of best practice. It is the only unified view of best practice that both buyers and service providers can be accredited to. So, you know, we've got a number of organisations that have gone through the standard and have found it incredibly valuable to their approach and their thinking of strategic sourcing. And our qualifications are all underpinned and aligned to this standard. I think Chris is going to go through some of the stages with you shortly, but it's really starts off with the strategic view of sourcing, and that strategic view stays front and centre to the end-to-end life cycle at all times. So, so next slide, please. And our strategic sourcing standard is underpinned by transparency principles and industry code of conduct, but also the GSA's competencies and capabilities framework. So again, that's freely available on the GSA website, and it's a framework that enables you to look at the competencies that you actually will need for your strategic sourcing, and enables you to map the skills and the training that you'd actually need to upskill both yourself and members of your team. So at this point, I'm hoping that I can actually hand over to Chris Halward. Chris, are you here?
I'm here.
Excellent, thank heavens for that. I was slightly worried, you did scare me. So, so welcome, Chris, and let me now, having done a brief intro to what we're doing, hopefully, oh no, I've got one more slide actually. Sorry, Chris, I've preempted you. So yeah, so what we're actually going to be announcing is what we believe is our most flexible approach to professional development ever. So we've changed it for the COVID environment, the virtual environment, and looked at how we can actually completely work our approach to both training and qualifications to work in this virtual way. So we've taken the qualifications that we've provided for the last 15 years and moved it into a format where we've made it so flexible that you can attend just one given webinar. You can attend a series, the full series of webinars, or you can actually move that into a qualification. The GSA's approach to qualifications is all work-based. We believe that is the best way of understanding sourcing is through experiencing it rather than through studying books on it. And our approach is a work-based learning approach where your assessment is done against papers submitted on scenarios that you are experiencing in the workplace, which makes it incredibly valuable for you as a student, but also for your employer. So you can move from just attending a webinar and learning to actually being qualified. And our portfolio of qualifications moves through from a certificate level through to a diploma level, which is worth a third of a master's degree, through the submission and assessment of papers. We also are aligned with Portsmouth University, so if you wish to, you can actually convert your diploma into a master's degree, which is recognised with Portsmouth University, or we can develop something completely bespoke with you, but I'm not going to go into details on that one now. So at this point, Chris, I would definitely like to hand over to you.
Great, thanks Kerry, thanks for the introduction, and hello everybody that's on the webinar. What I'm going to do is to really do a whistle stop sort of canter through how the program actually works and what you get from it if you choose to get involved. So as Kerry said, there's a great deal of flexibility regarding the degree to which you want to get involved in this. Of course, I'm vested interest in hoping that people will decide to go right the way through and get themselves a GSA diploma. So one of the things about strategic sourcing is that its success depends upon an integration of all of those elements that Kerry started to talk about. So we recognise there are 4 fundamental elements to successful strategic sourcing. There's the strategic decisions as to whether you're going to fundamentally source what you need to make the business or organisation work from internal resources or from external resources. So that make and buy decision. But whatever you choose to do, you then need to move forward into choosing suppliers or setting up shared service centres. So that takes you into the next stage. You then need to work out, once you've established that solution, how you're going to move the current operation into that new solution. So that's your transition stage. And then finally, last and absolutely not least, you then got to ensure that it works across the extent of the arrangement, which could be a few years, it could be decades in some cases with certain types of services. So that final element, the relationship management, is absolutely fundamental. What we find, and those of you that are involved in strategic sourcing, I'm sure will recognise this, is that it is the extent to which you can join all those elements together, which ensures the success of the overall arrangement and realising value. So the concept of the programs that the GSA are running is to support that notion of professionals involved in strategic sourcing having an appreciation of all of the elements of the life cycle, even if their particular roles focus only in one particular area. So let's say your focus is on the contracting part of the life cycle. Well, that's fine, but understanding upstream the decision-making process that instigated the contracting exercise, and also critically downstream what happens after you've signed the contract, is fundamental to success. So that's what we're really talking about, and this programme delivers those a framework for learning about best practices across that whole life cycle. As Kerry mentioned as well, the programme is a work-based learning format. So what that means in practice is that rather than being anchored to a classroom and case study material and so on, which has its place and has some considerable value from a learning point of view. What I've found over many years is that encouraging people to take their learning from that theoretical classroom-based situation into the workplace is the fundamental challenge that learning professionals have, and indeed the challenge that organisations have in trying to get value from their learning. It's all well and good to know the knowledge, but if you can't apply it, then it contributes very much less value to the enterprise. So what we're looking to do with work-based learning is to get people to really engage with the challenges that they have in the workplace, to really think about those and to learn, to use the learning from a work-based program such as the GSA diploma program to apply that learning to their particular work challenges. It means in practice that that the learning is much more relevant. It's also much more powerful, and I think those people that have been through the program really have recognised that that the learning really did make a lot of sense to them, and so was so much more effective due to its relevance. It also enables you to tailor it significantly so that you can address the issues that your organisation has. So you're learning, but at the same time, you're able to address real world problems, real life problems, and make a difference through the work that you do on the programme. So that allows us to really generate some return on the investment in a very real and direct way. It also, of course, means that you can address your own personal development goals. So you can choose the problems you want to address in your organisation, so that they're aligned with the things that you want to develop in your own particular skill sets. It also delivers you a professional qualification, which if you are moving forward in your career, it's always going to be of value to be able to demonstrate that you've gone through a structured program of learning. And as Kerry said, the professional qualification also has a link to the world of academia, so you can translate that with some more work into a full-blown master's degree, which a number of people have actually done, and that's with Portsmouth University. So that gives you a flavour of what we aim the programme to deliver. So let me go on to talk a bit more about the structure of the programme itself. So Abby, if you could move it on to the next one, the next slide. So you can see that what we've got on this slide is really 3 programmes in one, so 3 qualifications in one. So it starts off with a series of webinars, which we're going to start on the 14th of July. We'll run for 6 weeks. And each of those webinars are something around about 2 hours long and deliver some best practice content that will provide the basis for your work going forward. At the same time as those webinars are being delivered, those people that are pursuing the qualifications will complete their first paper. So you'll have about 2 months, in fact, to write this first paper, which is to a degree a preparatory paper. It's a paper that asks you to consider the role that you're doing at the moment. It asks you to think about your own challenges in that role, the ambitions you have, and also your personal development goals. So you might think it's one of those fluffy sort of exercises that perhaps is limited in the amount of value that it delivers. But what we discovered is that people really get a huge amount from doing this reflective exercise of really thinking about what is it that I'm doing. Critically, what that paper also asks you to do is to identify the particular projects that you are going to pursue through the remaining part of the program and the rump of the program. So you deliver that program for assessment. Takes us usually a couple of weeks to turn around that assessment, and you receive some feedback on that. You can then begin that first paper. So that will be essentially a work-based project. So it will be some sort of challenge that is relevant to the role that you undertake, and critically is going to add real value to your organisation. So you'll need to have had some conversations perhaps with people in your organisation and get their agreement and support for you to do this piece of work. So you'll have 3 months typically. If people want to do it quicker, then they absolutely can do, but it needs to be a well-researched, well put together piece of work. So what we found in the past is that it is really challenging to try and get it done in less time than that if it is to be a successful piece of work. I'm not saying it can't be done, but given that you've got other priorities of homework, then it's going to be hard work to get that done in less time than that. So you deliver that first paper, gets assessed, and if you want to, you can jump off the process at that point, and that delivers you a qualification, a certificate. Or you can choose to carry on and do a second paper and then a third paper. And if you go right the way through to the third paper, then you get the diploma in strategic sourcing. So what that means in practice is that much of the work that you're doing is going to be researching into work-based problems using the best practice materials that the webinars have delivered, and also the materials that the GSA have got. And Kerry mentioned about the strategic sourcing standard that contains an awful lot of material that you can use, apply, and see how relevant it will be to the issues that you're looking to address. So a great deal of flexibility, a number of options. Next slide, please. So these are the webinars that we are intending to deliver, and that will provide that theoretical underpinning of the work that you're going to do and the learning that you're going to do. The first webinar is specifically for those people who are going to go all the way through and gain a qualification. This webinar will talk about the specific requirements from those papers. So there are criteria that you'll need to comply with, and there is also going to be a format that the papers need to take, a very logical format, but one that you need to understand, so you can work within that framework, and it makes the process much more effective. What we'll also do in that webinar is to give you some advice around how to best approach the work that you're going to have to do. So it will be, for many people, a really helpful session around researching into the subject that you're looking to focus on. So having done that first webinar, the following ones will all follow topics that I'm sure you will recognise as being fundamental to strategic sourcing, and you'll see the alignment with the life cycle. So strategy and leadership is the first one, a very obvious alignment with the life cycle. The second stage is that contracting piece. So contracting, we look at typical commercial models within strategic sourcing, and also the notion of the supplier selection process. We look at that broad topic of governance, and risk as it applies specifically to strategic sourcing, the challenges around transition and transformation as well. We also look at those issues that are particularly aligned to the final stage of the life cycle, the relationship management side, which is the contract and performance management, and also how to build and maintain high quality commercial relationships. So lots and lots of material in there, and I'm sure that even for those people that are and see themselves as being very experienced, it will provide a very structured approach to that body of best practice knowledge. Next slide. So we've been doing this for many, many years, and we've learned an awful lot about what it is that people find particularly challenging. So if you're sitting there thinking, is this the right thing for me? These are the things that people have found. I wouldn't say they are problems, they are things that they've had to really get their heads around. So the first thing is to just identify the projects that you're going to work on. You might think that it's pretty straightforward, and I've got lots of problems in my job. If only I didn't. But try to work out how I can actually define those problems, how I can bottle those problems, is for many people something that does actually take some thought. And so that's why there is that first paper, which allows you the space to be able to think that thing through. And as many people will tell you, something I learned a long time ago is that knowing which questions to ask, knowing what problems you've got, takes you a long, long way down the road to actually sorting them out and solving them. So that's the first one. The other ones are probably more obvious. So being able to research sort of widely to find good quality information, a lot easier nowadays because we've got so much online, of course, and being able to put together a persuasive paper that will persuade stakeholders in particular. This is not an academic program. This is one that really needs to be able to influence your colleagues in your organisation. It's a project, so you need to be able to plan and organise it successfully. And finally, you do need to be able to balance the priorities of your day-to-day work, the priorities you've got at home, of course, and this study that you're going to be doing. Because it's work-based, it does make those priorities somewhat easier to manage. You should be able to blend your learning in with the work that you're actually doing. And the more successful you can do that, the better. What do you get? Well, you really will develop some genuine industry expertise. And part of that is because you get the opportunity to dive deep into the subject. So even those of you that have been around for more years than you care to remember, it does give that opportunity to really get stuck into some of the complexities of this strategic sourcing world. It also teaches you the art of the possible in terms of your own capabilities. For many people, it's shown them what they can achieve if they really put their minds to it. And I think going along with that, it really delivers this wonderful kind of pride in actually creating a body of work, and particularly if you go right the way through to the diploma. And I say we got William Carson on the course. If you go all the way through as William did to getting a master's degree, there is this real sense, even for an old bloke, that it's really it's something that you can still achieve. So there's life in the old dogs yet, as the saying goes. So you really do get a real sense of having done some high quality work and can feel pride in that. Next slide. This just gives you an idea of some of the types of projects that people have set themselves, I wouldn't like you to be overly confined or constrained by those, because you really can choose anything that is within that strategic sourcing domain. You tend to find the best phrase to use, because these are very personal projects, is a problem which starts off, how can I? And you'll see with all of those, they all start off, how can I? So it's not about some academic approach, some theoretical approach. It's about, how can I make a difference? That's fundamentally what the whole conceit of this program is all about. So those give you something of an idea, and you can see that we've had typically some very large organisations that have had representatives go through the program, and they've been looking to address the issues that they've got in their own organisations. Next slide, please. So for me, last and absolutely not least, is that this is a program which I'm sure if you choose to do it, you'll get a great deal from. It is a program that for many people, you may need some help and support from time to time. So being part of this program means that you get the benefits essentially of GSA membership, so the knowledge base that the GSA have, the events that you can attend, and also a global network of people that have huge amounts of experience of the strategic sourcing world. So if you're doing a piece of work and you would find it useful to talk to someone and get their input, then there's a good chance that there is someone in the GSA global network that would be happy to spend half an hour on the phone giving you some input. In terms of formal support, you will get an online tutor, which is most likely to be me. And I've been involved in strategic sourcing for about 100 years, it feels like. I think it's only about 30, actually, but I think that's probably enough. But you will be able to have conversations with me on the phone as and when you need it. Usually it's a couple of phone calls, half an hour, 40 minutes is usually all that you need for each of the papers that you do. So you don't need to spend lots of time talking or listening to me, but it can be really helpful to have someone to just check out the direction that you're taking. I think that's probably enough for now. We're starting to run out of time, so let me ping it back over to Kerry, and she can just tell you a little bit about the commercials around this.
That's great. Thanks ever so much for all of that, Chris. Yeah, so we have priced this just as realistically as we possibly can, and obviously compared to the fees that you'd actually pay if you were going to university, I think you'd agree that these are incredibly good value. So we've priced it as an individual webinar that you can dip in and just do one, is £195 plus VAT per student. If you wanted to attend the entire series of 7 webinars and then move on to actually getting the GSA certificate in strategic sourcing, it's £1,295. So that's all 7 webinars plus the papers being assessed, and obviously that work of coaching that Chris talked about. And then as you move up to the advanced certificate and the diploma, and you've got more work on more papers, then it's an additional £300 to move up the qualification scale. So yeah, as reasonably priced as we think we could possibly make it. In addition to that, we do obviously do in-house workshops. If you wanted your entire team to be trained, then depending on the complexity of the workshop, the fee for that is anything between £1,800 and £2,400. More than that, we also do very bespoke projects. So we have done a development of a very unique qualification with Capita as an example, which they have then become accredited to deliver to all of their own employees in-house. So the scope of the work the GSA can do in professional development is endless, but obviously today we really wanted to focus on this specific programme that we've developed for delivering in our virtual environment. So next slide, I think, is just to give you some quotes, Abby, of people that have actually been through professional development with the GSA. So I'll let you read those yourselves. I'm not going to read those to you, but I'm actually going to ask you, William, as you are online and here, whether you'd be willing to actually give a verbal quote and reference about what your experience was of participating in the diploma and also the standard, because obviously you put teleperformance that you were with at that time through the standard. So if you don't mind, sorry, put you on the spot.
No, not at all, Kerry, very happy to. I think the challenge for the industry means that we're constantly viewed as sort of accidental career. For me personally, and I'm sure this is for anybody really who's built up a career in the industry, as Chris has alluded to, there's a real need to understand beyond simply thinking things are best practice or imagining you've taken the best approach, to actually having that tested and validated. And academia in that sense remains perhaps the real fulcrum around which that can be achieved. And so when I did the standard, it was very much, sorry, when I did the postgrad diploma, it was very much for that reason. And although we're talking about the value back into the industry, there's also personal value in terms of career advancement as well, which certainly I've benefited from. So specifically around the doing the diploma, I mean, I think all the work that the GSA has been doing over the years is very valuable, but particularly rolling it up into the postgraduate was fantastic because it did allow you to share and meet people from the different side of the service supplier buyer side. So I come from the BPO side, but it was great to understand more about the language and the methodologies that were really at the heart of what people were trying to achieve for their businesses as the buyers of those services. So it also gave me certainly a common language which I could add back into the business. Then obviously the standard I felt was absolutely key to then bringing value back into the business, and with teleperformance that was achieved for the public sector services, of which that's a huge part of what that company does in the UK, which they themselves felt was a great opportunity again to validate what they'd always done. But so often in BPO, everyone's trying to be so unique that often what happens is that uniqueness hasn't been tested or validated in any other way than the bottom line revenue. So it was great again for the standard to actually say, does this stack up in terms of repeatable methodologies? And finally, of course, for me personally, it was great then a few years ago to roll the postgraduate forward into the masters. And again, as you've said on the call, to be able to then look at that from a professional development specific to what I do in my workplace. And that was fundamental to both the advancement of many ideas within teleperformance, and both in the UK and globally, and then my personal advancement moving on to Ascensos. And that leaves me now in a position where I'm seriously considering the professional doctorate as the next stage and rolling that up further. So thumbs up from me all the way.
That's excellent. Thanks very much for sharing that, William. So I'm going to ask if there are any questions from the floor. Just put your hand up, and I'm sure Chris or William or myself would be more than happy to answer. But I think if there are no questions, I think we're pretty much on time to finish.
Oh, got a hand up.
Yeah.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Just a quick question. How does this qualification compare to other accreditations like SIPS or IACCM?
Chris, are you okay to answer that one?
Yep, give it a go. I think the major difference is this whole work-based learning approach. In fact, I was only looking at SIPS a couple of days ago, just to remind myself of the approach that they take, and it is still very much exam based. So you will need to hammer through various exams. I think the other comment that I make as well is that, and I think other people have made this comment, SIPs in particular, there is a particular focus on the content that they have, which is very broadly based around that procurement domain. And for some people, they would see that some of it is of huge value to the job that they do. But then there would be other elements of it that they would see as being of very much less value, because it is that broad-based procurement agenda. So I think when we look at the contrast and compare, I think the flexibility of the GSA program allows you to really focus in the areas that you want your learning to focus, and doesn't constrain you to learn about things that may be of marginal value. So that would be the biggest point that I think I'd make.
Okay, does that answer your question, Kevin? Is that okay?
It does. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I think we've just got a closing slide, Abby.
Another question there.
Oh, sorry, didn't see that one.
Oh no, that was Kevin. Yeah, that was Kevin. No, sorry.
All right. Okay, so all right, it's not much of a slide, it's just contact details really to ask you to get in touch. So if you're interested in learning anything more or having further conversations, then myself or Chris or William as a reference would be more than willing to have a one-to-one conversation with you. Other than that, I'd really like to say thank you very much for joining us, and thank you very much, Chris, for taking us through. The programme is starting quite soon, starting within 2 weeks. So if you are interested, or you've got members of your team that are interested, please do register. And also please do take a look at the manifesto and have a look at the work streams that we're running, because we really want to get more people actively engaged in all of those work streams. Please be part of it and help shape this industry. So thank you very much. Thanks all, and have great afternoons. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.